for joining us for your ROH and TNA post show here on Fightful today. We thank you so much for being here. It is Thursday, September 26th, and we've got an episode of ROH to talk about here. We do feel like we're back to some of our old ways, but I think a better week than yet last week for sure. I think there was a little bit more substance and some returning ROH talent from kind of the days of yore that I was very excited to see on this. But please get in your super chats if there's anything that you would like to discuss about tonight, about ROH, about how SP3's list was the perfect guide to that Danielson and Nigel McGuinness match from last week. Really, really good stuff. So many notes that you mentioned that I saw show up in that match, which was so special. I was so excited to be there. Grand Slam was a great, great time. Very cool to see fellow ROH stan Kimmy Sokol there. Very nice to see the old boss Sean there as well. So a lot of fun was had, but a lot of fun to be had tonight. So please leave a thumbs up on this video. We'll also take a moment to remind you to subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. Best $5 in the biz. Some news about Soraya's contract being renewed just went up there earlier today. So head over to FightfulSelect.com. It is a crazy contract year. It's still a crazy contract season, even coming down these burr months, as the white girls say. We've got a lot of contracts still outstanding, but joining me as always to bring all the fun, to bring all the knowledge, to bring all the analysis, to bring all the lists is SP3. SP3, how are you today?
I am doing wonderful. I did not go to my first Grand Slam in, 2 years? So I missed the opportunity to tailgate with Kate like That's I did true. Last year. That was a good time last year. But I am here to talk some Ring of Honor. And yes, we have another list this week because when Ring of Honor only gives us 1 hour, it gives me a whole hour to come up with a list. Also, I've been catching up on the Vince McMahon documentary, which I'm up to episode 4 now. And okay. This is I literally paused it as they're talking about the whole Owen Hart, and I'm just like, oof. Well, I gotta change my whole mind state.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's I haven't watched it. I feel like the net of a lot of what I've been seeing is that Vince McMahon built an empire on a lot of abuse and toxic behavior at best. Really,
and he wasn't loved as a child. Which explains a lot.
Sure. There's a lot of people that weren't loved as a child and don't go this route, but all right.
I'm just saying, some people, get therapy or have people in their life that they actually can talk to, and they improve on their life instead of trying to drag people down to that level. But that's Mr. Grant for you. But we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about honor, which he doesn't have any of.
Correct.
That. So we're only talking about honor and Ring of Honor. So yes, I have another list for us this week. And because of our talk last week, where we talked about how Ring of Honor, the biggest nitpick, the biggest complaint that we had about last week's episode is they had someone on their roster who made history, which they didn't even mention, which this week they did mention. So I'll give them that. They did mention it. They did have her on this show, but I don't think they did enough to celebrate.
They definitely
celebrate the milestone that was Athena becoming the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion in the company's history. So that's what me and Kate are here for. So this week, I'm giving you the top 5 best Athena Ring of Honor Women's World Title matches of this illustrious reign.
I love that. That'll be a very, very fun list to go down. Our forever champ Athena, the glue of this whole era for sure. Definitely not doing enough to call attention to her accomplishments at all. Like, thank God for Ian Riccaboni, because he's the only person that has mentioned it, even in passing. There should have been a full-on celebration for this. It's the longest ROH title reign in history. A really disappointing and, to be harsh, but fair, pathetic acknowledgement of Athena, not on Ian's part. I'm very glad that he mentioned it at all, but there should have been a segment and there should be way more fanfare about it on social media. The fact that this is now a women-centric brand is something that we've been trying to beat the drum of. Them not doing enough to recognize that their own accomplishments essentially is really, 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 really lame. But we're going to get into all of that the more. SP3 is going to celebrate. I know that much. We're going to have a great list, but let's get us started here. We have Action Andretti and Tony Deppen, which made me so happy to see Tony Deppen here. I wish they would. There's some people from that old crop that we've seen on here that I wish they would make a part of the promotion again. And I don't just mean Jonathan Gresham, though it feels very weird that he's in TNA Impact and like was in Octopus and now isn't. I don't really know what's going on with that, but like Tony Deppen for sure, Cheeseburger, LSG, Eli Isom. Like I would love to see those guys kind of return because that was an era that I was invested in and they're great talent that, I feel like could be really reliable, which is something that they could use in such a wayward product. But very nice to see Tony Deppen back here. To be honest, thought he had a much better showing than Action Andretti, but not surprising because Tony Deppen is a very, very high work rate kind of wrestler. That isn't a knock on Andretti as much as it is an uplift of what Tony Deppen can do. But no rust on that guy showing up back at the ROH brand. I thought he was excellent in this. He does take the pinfall to that split-legged moonsault. I understand what seemingly Chris Jericho and AEW saw in Action Andretti. I don't know if I've seen it built upon. Like, I don't know how much Action Andretti has really improved from the time he came in until now, and that maybe is something that ROH should be for wrestlers, is a place to kind of unlock those things and figure it out. But I think it's partly hampered because he's sometimes the top flight and sometimes a singles wrestler. Like, I think it's hard to improve as a wrestler when the creative is so inconsistent from week to week for this guy. And I think they're going to stunt a lot of their future talent if that's the case. Like, that's a really, really, really unfortunate symptom of what's going on here, is that this place that should be a breeding ground for improving wrestlers is kind of a place for stagnation. That's not to say there aren't wrestlers getting over. Look at what's going on with the Outrunners and things like that. But I always go back to, it's a frustrating product to watch when it's this inconsistent. The talent deserve better. And I don't just mean from they deserve to have builds into title matches. I also mean in stuff like this. So it's unfortunate, but it was a decent little opener. Deppen looked great. Action Andretti looked solid enough. The split-legged moonsault always looks really impressive. To nobody's surprise, my favorite Andretti match that I've seen so far was ZSJ and him catching him into that. Oh, it was so much fun. So much fun. But I feel like a lot of Action Andretti matches are opponent dependent at this point, and that's a hurdle he needs to climb. What did you think of our opener here?
Yeah, Action Andretti is not going to kind of be like the lead in a lot of these matches, but he had someone that he could work well with here.
Sure.
I thought Tony Deppen, he's just so smooth and fluid in the ring. I made a mistake on Twitter. He was never signed to the Sinclair era, which is not my mistake. It's honestly the Sinclair era of Ring of Honor. How he was a former television champion. He was a part of that stable with Homicide in them at the end of the Ring of Honor run with Sinclair. So how was he not signed? So that's their mistake, not really mine.
Not at all.
He was one of my favorites at that time, and I loved seeing him back here because Tony Deppen is just so good at what he does in the ring, but he's also a good character as well. And I've seen more of that on his GCW run with his ability to kind of play the heel and get under the skin of not just his opponent, but the fans, and he does that very well. So he's someone that I could see, like, even if it's just an ongoing kind of thing, or not really kind of him being the kind of the standout and getting a push himself, but someone that can work with kind of the young talent that is signed to Ring of Honor and AEW. I think that he could be useful in that role, and he was useful here in giving Action Andretti one of his better kind of singles matches that we've seen in a while. And I 100% agree with what you said. Like, Action Andretti has kind of been a victim of AEW's kind of change from, you know, the AEW of 2019 to 2021, where it always looked like they had a clear plan. Like you always go back to like their world title scene at that time of going from Jericho to Moxley to Kenny Omega to Hangman Adam Page. You kind of saw that from the very beginning, that was where they were going, that it was eventually going to get to Hangman Adam Page. And I feel like ever since then, when it went from Hangman Adam Page to CM Punk, that was kind of a personification of things are changing and it's not a long-term plan. Like CM Punk being the world champion wasn't a long-term plan because they signed him and then they're eventually like, well, he's the top star, let's put the world title on him. But they never had like a clear plan following that. Maybe they had, you know, CM Punk dropping the title to
your audio cut out on me. Now you're back, but you're at a different mic, I think. You're a little fuzzier, but I can hear you, so that's good. Oh, there you are.
There you go. Yeah.
Looking good. Sounding good. Killing it.
Well, yeah. Hey, at least my computer didn't restart like last week. So
that's true. Hey, I am not one to criticize about internet issues, so
I think that was the point where like they changed from having like a long-term plan with anything, with you know, their main storyline or anybody, to kind of just going from week to week. And I think that's been like that why a lot of people have been like, you know, not as much of a fan as they were of AEW into like 2022. And then compounding on that was Tony Khan purchasing ROH and not really giving ROH to somebody else. I feel like it's okay for Tony Khan to own ROH, but him booking all of this, AEW and ROH, when most of his attention and focus is going to go to AEW, ROH is just like kind of an outlier. It does feel a lot of times like it's AEW dark again, or ROH dark, or ROH velocity at some point. So if he kind of has a plan outside of, you know, Athena being Ring of Honor Women's World Champion and never being able to cross over to the AEW brand, unlike every other AEW champion, I mean, our ROH champion is able to be on AEW television except for Athena. It's not Athena, not any of the women's champion, because Billie Starkz, Red Velvet, they haven't been on AEW television either. Nope. But we can get Lee Moriarty on AEW television. We can get Mark Briscoe on AEW television more than he is on ROH television.
And Dustin Rhodes they had to have a recap on this show to tell you what was going on with the tag title pictures, because everything that's happening with the tag titles is happening on AEW, not ROH. So we are going to talk about that more, but I agree with you. And I would also say, from an overall criticism of the AEW standpoint, it feels like they have a lot of hours of television and they care about two of them. I think the Rampage and Collision expansions were not healthy calls. And it has felt like I really liked Collision there for a while. And I don't just mean the Punk era. I mean, when we were getting FTR versus Bullet Club Gold for 58 minutes, and it was one of the best tag matches I'd ever seen. It used to be that Collision had like at least one banger that I was talking about into the next week, and now it's just like, this is where we go to squash ROH talent. Like, it's not great anymore. So
I even enjoyed the going from Punk to the Bryan era, when Bryan had his feuds with like Ricky Starks, or even earlier this year when Bryan was basically building up to his Eddie Kingston and Zack Sabre Jr. matches versus like Hechicero and Shibata on Collision. That was good stuff. But like now it's like, you're absolutely right. He only cares about Dynamite, and then everything else is, oh, just make some matches. Who's here? Okay, that's the match. Who's going to be at this taping? Oh, that's the match. So, like, yeah, I think that the expansion of getting Ring of Honor, the expansion of having Collision, because at one point, I really enjoyed Rampage. Rampage was just a third hour of AEW.
On Rampage, yeah, like it used to be.
We had Lucha Bros and Young Bucks on Rampage into like 2022. Like
we had like a lot of the Regal stuff was taking place on Rampage. Like Mox and Danielson got set up on Rampage. It does feel like
Mox and Willie Yuta's breakout matchup.
I mean, and so that's I think if Shockwave becomes a thing, Rampage goes away. But they need to learn how to assign equal weight to all of the programming that they have, and they also have to learn how to tell stories across all three brands or separate rosters. They have to choose an alley, because if ROH is your fourth most important thing and it's having this kind of flow up where it's like the Outrunners are the most popular people in the Casino Gauntlet for whatever reason, like you have to create some sort of consistency, some sort of throughway. And yeah, to your point, the fact that Athena is never allowed out of the ROH box and ROH is her witness protection program for some reason is ridiculous. It gets very, very old. Very, very old. But we will move on here, and I see a lot more of you are tuned in now, so I'm going to repeat my beginning of the show plugs. I'm sorry for those of you who are OGs who have been here since the beginning of this episode, but we will remind you to subscribe to FightfulSelect.com real quick. The news about Saraya went up. There's plenty more to come. The news, of course, about MVP being signed to AEW and all of the implications for Grand Slam and what that might look like. Also on FightfulSelect.com, plenty of action in the Discord as well. You can join our Discord for a nice, like, moderated and safe environment to discuss. And in addition to that, you get tons and tons of other value on FightfulSelect.com. You get Sean's Q&A and backstage report back there. You get me and Alex Pulowski doing pay-per-view post shows behind the paywall, alternative to what is on the main channel. So lots of fun to be had over there for $5. And hey, it goes back to support all of us. So thank you to Sean for working very hard so that I can goof off here on Thursdays with SV3. But we will also ask you to leave a thumbs up on this video and to touch tips in the comments. Even though MXM aren't really on ROH right now, we still touch tips here. We touch tips here. Like this.
That was the fastest like graduation from Ring of Honor to AEW we've ever seen.
It really was. Like they and the Outrunners caught fire in a very a different way that I think was anticipated. So good for them, but we do miss them around these parts. But we will move along on this episode. Get in those super chats if there's anything you want to talk about, but we get a quick promo from the Iron Savages, which was definitely filmed at the Texas tapings because they're literally referencing the highways in Texas for this. And they call out the Outrunners, and they call them meat riders and say that they would stop at nothing to stop the Outrunners' momentum. This is what I'm talking about. Like, the Iron Savages and the Outrunners have this feud that's been kind of building, but the Outrunners feel like they're like primed and ready for a title shot sometime soon against the Young Bucks, like with the way that they have gotten over in their few appearances on the main. So they need to separate the rosters again for this reason, like overall ROH criticism. How can you build anybody in ROH if they keep leaving to go to the AEW, which they need? Like, main roster tag teams. MXM needs to be up there. The Outrunners need to be up there. GYV needs to be up there. But it means we have no contenders for the tag titles for Dustin and Sammy. It means we have no contenders for the trios title, which the Von Erichs aren't allowed out of Texas, as we've discussed previously on this show. They have to be the Van Erichs and take a van across state borders. But outside of that, this was perfectly fine. I'm still struggling to settle in a little bit to trying to be serious badasses with this very goofy gimmick. Like, when you're serious and badass, but you're talking about Titty City and being meat riders, like, I don't know if they've struck the balance yet. I'm not saying it can't be done, but for me, it feels a little bit like they're trying to play in two worlds, and it would be more beneficial if they focused on one. I don't know if you feel the same way or if this is working for you.
No, it's not working for me. And even if it was, the next matchup just made me be like, so why did y'all give him the promo then? Why did y'all build them up?
The editing of this past month or so has been so off kilter.
Oh my god, this was the worst case of it, because I'm like, at first I'm like, okay, they have a match next, so obviously they're gonna win the match because they're building up this feud with the Outrunners. Then immediately I'm thrown off by the announcement that the next match is Boulder and Jack Jameson. I was like, wait, that's not his usual partner. Nope. So why?
But he was out there.
He was out there. He didn't look injured. He didn't look injured to me. Maybe he is. I don't know. But I was very much confused by that. And then they're versing Dark Order. I'm like, well, Dark Order is kind of over. Okay, this is an interesting match because I don't know who you're going to put over here. But it makes sense for the Iron Savages to win because they're in an actual feud and Dark Order isn't. But
Sure.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that match for sure. We do have, as SP3 stated, for some reason, it's Jack Jameson in the ring with Boulder. I'm wondering if this was just like weird taping schedule stuff or availability stuff, but against Reynolds and Silver, and you get the Wombo combo on Jack Jameson. Maybe that's what it was. They wanted Jameson to maybe take the pin instead. In a decent enough match, my notes say Dark Odor, which is very funny. Thanks to autocorrect on that. But Evil Uno and Boulder are at ringside for this. That would be a really fun singles match if they wanted to set that up out of this. Like, that would have been kind of cool. But to your point, why is the Dark Order beating them if they're supposed to be the ones getting kind of elevated in this feud? This goes back to my issue with who is in the trios division and who is in the tag division, because the Dark Order should be making headway in the trios division, in my opinion. I don't know why you keep Evil Uno out of the ring. But just yet another case, a terminal case of great match. What is the direction here? Like, we say it so often. This one's even more perplexing than usual. But what were your thoughts on this?
I was so baffled. I was like, at the end of this matchup, which was a pretty decent matchup, I was like, yeah, this is a decent stuff. It's a match, I always give a thumbs up with matches where I don't automatically know who's gonna win, which is the theme with AEW and ROH. I think I know 90% of the time who's gonna win the matchup. So I did not know who was going to win the matchup. So a thumbs up in that regard. But that's the only thumbs up this match gets because of the result. I'm like, why did we have an interview with the Savage Sauce guys, like Iron Savages? Like, what was the point? Because I thought you were building a feud with the Outrunners. The Outrunners just seem so far ahead of you guys. Like, they shouldn't even be feuding with you at this point because they are one of the most over tag teams in all of AEW. They need to be going on to either feuding with GYV or going immediately to the Young Bucks for the AEW World Tag Team Champions. They've bypassed even contending for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles, let alone versing a team that I legit don't remember the last time I saw the Iron Savages beat a non-jobber team. I don't remember. In AEW, Ring of Honor, they are usually the team that loses to a team that is either on their same level or above them. I saw them lose like in 10 minutes to the Acclaim at the All Out 0 Hour. I see them lose here against Dark Order. Why is Outrunners even spending time with y'all? Why are y'all building this feud? The Outrunners have bypassed Ring of Honor to me. Like, what are we doing?
I also feel like, while I like an unpredictable result, there's a difference between you've sewed layers into a feud that I don't know who's going to win, and your creative is so bad I don't know who's going to win. Like, there's a difference between it's unpredictable because you've told a story that's compelling that could go either way, and you've told such a backwards and confusing thing that the promo before has nothing to do with a match I'm seeing, so it's unpredictable in that way. Like, I love unpredictable matches. I would prefer they be good and unpredictable in that way. Not that the match quality is bad, that the creative to get you there is confusing. Yeah. But I feel like Dreepy saying, wear deodorant to get rid of the dark odor. Yeah, there you go. That's a struggle for wrestling fans, my friend. I was at Arthur Ashe yesterday, I should know, but Meet Norma saying, hello, bruvs, let's crank. Is ROH going to be the silly worker tag division? Because as long as the youngest men alive win the titles, I'm here for it as long as the youngest men alive win the titles. This is the problem, and it's honestly a good problem for the teams to have. FightfulSelect.com reported, best $5 in the biz, that it was believed that the Outrunners were signed even though they haven't gotten the graphic. I believe MXM is signed to some deal. I don't know if it's per appearance or if it's a full-time deal, but I think they were supposed to be cornerstones of the ROH side, and then between the need in AEW for more tag teams and how much they caught fire, I love MXM because I love those guys, but also once they had the vision in their own control to execute what they wanted to do with it, as opposed to where they previously worked, you can see how much more sense it makes with this character. There's a really fun thing coming up on Collision for you guys on Saturday that I got to see yesterday with them. It was wildly silly and fun. But, like, the shit poster hip talk mixed in with the MXM, like, model gimmick has really, really resonated. There is something in every segment they have that, I will say this, I think WWE is really good at this, and I think AEW could improve on this. There is something in every segment those guys have that sticks with you and gets talked about online. That is something that I think WWE has a strength, where if it's not something that's completely forgettable, which they have their fair share of that, like, the really great ones leave you with something that you remember every single time. Like, there's always something in a Becky Lynch promo pretty much that I remember her saying, right? MXM has done that on the comedic side extremely well. I would love to see other teams step up their promo game. That's something, like, I think that the Iron Savages are a great example of, right? Like, they give really solid promos. I don't know if there's anything I take away from them that I'm carrying into the next week or whatever, or anything that I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so noteworthy. Like, let's have some buzz around it, right? So I think that separation of how over they've gotten, plus the need for AEW tag teams to rebuild that division, it feels like they kind of skipped a step. But there's no excuse for that, because, like, the infantry is great and they've been working their ass off most weeks there. Like, there's no reason Sammy and Dustin should have those titles. It's absolutely pathetic. Like, and that is no shade to either of them. I actually think Sammy's been really good in this return run, and I think Dustin is legend for a reason. This is ridiculous that both sets of belts are getting held hostage. But any thoughts on that, SP3?
And it's the fact that you have Sammy and Dustin as the champions, and there are literally, like, no heel tag teams that they're even building up to challenge them. Like,
that's why I thought MXM was a slam dunk, was because they're very funny, but they're heels.
Yeah, like, you should be building them up on Ring of Honor television to be the challengers for Sammy and Dustin. And knowing all of this and what we're saying right now, Tony Khan will probably just put them on Final Battle against Sammy and Dustin.
Sure.
Like, because we still got 2-3 months before that happens, and he might just do that. But, like, I agree with you. MXM were probably, like, a long-term thing for Ring of Honor, but I'll tell you, it was that first match that they did on Collision against FTR. They got over. Tony loved it. FTR loved it. MXM loved it. And he was like, you know what? We're going to keep you on AEW television. And he hasn't looked back since. He has not even teased them coming to ROH since then. And we're getting to the point, like I said before, with Outrunners, where the Outrunners are going to be, like, the only thing holding on to them is this rivalry that they started 2 weeks ago with the Iron Savages. That's the only thing keeping them here, because they have not even talked about going after the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles, because once again, it's a babyface tag team. I 100% agree with you. It does not make any sense with the teams that they were building up. Remember when we were talking about Top Flight being undefeated on ROH TV? We have not seen Top Flight since they left Texas. Infantry, was building up. It's getting over. They even got teased on the main roster of AEW, getting a victory over House of Black in the tournament earlier in the year. And they just came back to Ring of Honor, and they've been, chucking along, keeping hard working, and always getting over. They always get a good response from the fans, but there's been no upward mobility for them, because they should be in contention or winning the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. But you decided to get it on Sammy and Dustin, like, seemingly out of nowhere. I will go back to the point. You
seemingly
did not even
it could not be more out of nowhere. They weren't a team until they paired up and won. They weren't a team.
You did not even build to it. You did it on the second match that they ever had together.
Ridiculous. Shout out to our friends in MXM, whose Hey W episode had me in stitches. That was on, like, a a top 5 list of mine. That might have been my favorite since Kyle O'Reilly's, which I went back and watched because it was so good. But guys, thank you so much for the support. Keep those super chats coming. Leave a thumbs up on this video to help people find us. We actually cracked 2,000 views last week, which was that's an awesome thing for us. So we appreciate the support a lot. But we move along here to Abadon defeating Livia, I believe was her name, with the Black Dahlia. Clearly still building toward Athena. They're at least on the same episode tonight. That's good. But good stuff from them tonight. It's kind of the challenge with Abadon is how do you get out of the trope of having the same match every time they go out there, right? And I think they're still discovering how to do that a little bit. I can't think of a better way to shatter that mold than having them face Athena. I always love how natural Ian sounds on commentary. We talk about it all the most weeks, and I don't want to pat him on the back for stuff he should be doing too much, but the fluidity of him working in they pronouns is like so smooth and easy. And also there's always something with Ian. I've said it a million times, but it shows up every time. And I think it's important because I can't identify what it is, but it is just different with him. Like the weight and respect that he assigns to women's wrestling is exactly the same as men's. Like there is no difference in the way that he calls things. And that just is something that I've never heard before on commentary. It's not something that everybody should do. It's something that all play-by-play people should do. Like Nigel McGuinness, if he wants to talk about kissing Mariah May, like that makes sense for who Nigel McGuinness is, right? But it stands out to me every time, and it means a lot to me as a fan to hear the respect with which he talks about Athena's title reign. And it was him putting her name in the mix with Samoa Joe and Nigel McGuinness and Bryan Danielson and these things that really called that out. And he was also the only person to acknowledge that on this broadcast, that Athena broke the record. So just a shout out to Ian Riccaboni for always being one of the best. But like for that particular thing of being so respectful of women's wrestling and not treating it like we're fucking unicorns. It's just wrestling from a different gender or different genders in this case. But kind of rinse, lather, repeat, which I think is what you want on the build to Athena. But I'm hoping that the match with Athena brings out a different side of Abadon that maybe we haven't seen yet.
I agree with you on everything you said because I really feel like Ian Riccaboni doesn't get enough credit for how good he is at that, whether it be, putting in the pronouns when he needs to and not even thinking about it. He just does it so naturally. It just works well. And, Abadon, this was an Abadon matchup. Abadon, they always are able to dominate in these type of matchups, but I do like that they're showing more personality.
Yes.
In their matches now because they're talking more, they're talking a little trash, they're doing the regular gimmick that they always do, but they are showing more of themselves. So I do enjoy that from Abadon. We saw that a little bit later in the post match to the other women's matchup on this show. So thumbs up for Abadon showing more personality, and thumbs up to the commentary team. I do think, they're doing the right thing with Abadon. Abadon just needs to pick up more wins because I think we're going to get what we said before. I think it was Kate that was like, it's nice to see Abadon not in Halloween season, but I think they are dragging this feud along because we're not getting the matchup until a month from now on the Halloween edition of Ring of Honor TV.
I'm sure that's the case, but nice to see. Abadon was in that tournament too, I believe. Was Abadon in the tournament or just around at least at the same time? I think was in the tournament. So they have made a concerted effort. They're definitely getting pushed around Halloween time more, as is tradition for Abadon. So, but I like what they're doing with Abadon. But you know what else I like, SP3?
What?
Your lists. And we are talking women's wrestling and they wrestling right now. So I think if we're talking about the historic title reign of Athena, now would be a great time to take 5 and 4 off the list.
I do have honorable mention because Athena's had so much great matches that
Sure.
are worth mentioning. So my honorable mentions is Nyla Rose, the 2 out of 3 falls tables match from February earlier this year. I enjoyed that matchup.
Fantastic.
My only nitpick of that matchup is that I felt like Nyla Rose should have been a pay-per-view title defense.
Very
for
fair.
Athena, because that rivalry, I enjoyed it way too much. Way more. I'm sorry. From going back to surprise when she beat her up in her training facility, that was great.
Eating an orange with the peel on. It was really fun because Nyla has so much personality, and that was kind of the first taste of face Athena that we got. So we were also just getting this very fresh side of Athena as well. Great call. Great call for the honorable mention there.
Yeah. My other honorable mention is Hikaru Shida at Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor 2024. Because it was nice that we had these two feuds like back to back. Two former AEW Women's World Champions, and showing more of a side of Athena where, she's been like this overpowering, very cocky champion throughout her run. But Hikaru Shida brought out some of like the fear in Athena, where she was facing a challenger that she did have some fear against, that she did suffer a loss against. So
Sure.
I wanted to mention that one again. But number 5 on my list, this is a good one that I think some people have forgotten about just how good this was. This is probably the best match of her opponent's career, Kiera Hogan, the Chicago street fight from June of last year. Just a plunder match, but just so well done with the different spots, the big spots through the table, the chair bridge, the chair doomsday destruction that they went through. And stuff.
Good.
Oh my God, that was
so good.
A brutal, hard-hitting matchup that I still think is Kiera Hogan's best match of her entire career. Number 4 for me, going just a couple of months ago, Death Before Dishonor 2024, Athena versus Queen Amanada. Another instance of, just two women going out there and delivering. I think that after when we did the post show for that show, it was just big match Athena. That's what I came up with. The Athena is the Johnny Takeover of Ring of Honor pay-per-views, because this was another instance of her delivering one of her opponent's best matches of her career. I think that was still to this day Amanada's best performance that she's had in a big matchup, and further showing kind of starting the story of the next chapter of Billie Starkz versus Athena, that we're still seeing kind of the fallout from the result of that matchup when Billie Starkz caused the distraction, which allowed Lexi Nair to help out Athena in the matchup. And we also talked about on the post show how Athena just comes up with different ways to gain the victory or sneak away with the win. So that's what I remember most from that matchup also.
I love that the 4 matches that you called out. I was thinking about this because we saw MVP yesterday, right? And the Hurt Business, Hurt Syndicate, Hurt LLC, whatever you want to call them. Hurt Nonprofit, perhaps. Maybe this will be very different. Like, if the idea that is happening is built on championships, I had 2 ideas. The first one was, I feel like Kiera Hogan in that faction, if it's going to be anything similar to what we saw at all, versus like them versus BCC, and we have Marina Shafir doing what she's doing with Kiera Hogan, feels like $1 jillion to me. But I was also thinking, if they're trying to load it up with champions, I don't really want Athena in a stable because I think she's such a phenom on her own, but I would not be mad. I would not be mad about Athena palling around with Bobby Lashley, and if Shelton Benjamin's in it or whoever, if there are like people that are holding gold or this is being built on championship accreditation, that could be a very fun way to bring her up. I do feel like Kiera Hogan's the call, though, because like her personality, I just feel like is such a screen jumper in such a special way. But excellent start to our list. Guys, keep those super chats coming. We appreciate you so much. We do have Joel Pearl with the TNA post show going solo again this week. Cresta will be back soon. I got to see her at Grand Slam as well. What a What a light in this world Cresta is. Just a walking embodiment of charisma in that woman. She's incredible. Absolutely adore her. But we get a Diamante interview. I thought that maybe they had forgotten about this, but they pick it back up here with Velvet talking about how great Diamante's work is. But Velvet says that she was in a bigger spot and that it was eating Diamante alive. Diamante said that Velvet has no idea what she would do to get that belt, and Red looked better on her anyway, which I thought was a cute little nod there. Shout out to Red Velvet, who is going to be in CMLL too. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
If you're not allowed to be in AEW, at least you can go over to CMLL and do some work. But for someone who is being raised through wrestling kind of more recently in their career, like AEW was kind of the start of her wrestling career, getting experience all over the world, I think, is something that's really cool and really special. So awesome that she's expanding her horizons. Layla Gray also enrolling in the New Japan Dojo, I thought was something that was very cool that came up over the course of the past week. Like, she could do a million things. She's very talented and very entertaining, but her committing to wrestling like that, I just think is so cool. So a good promo here. This, I feel like, should be a great match with like what we've seen more recently out of Velvet and knowing Diamante's attitude and style. I'm looking forward to this being built out properly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Diamante has really kind of stepped up, and the fact that, Layla Hirsch got injured in the Texas Death Match at Death Before Dishonor. This is kind of their way of kind of awarding one of the ladies in that feud, because they had a great lights out matchup before that, then a show stealing Texas Death Match at Death Before Dishonor. So it's good to see kind of Diamante stepping up into the title scene, coming off the heels of that. And, I love the fact that Red Velvet mentioned that in the promo, that this is kind of, you've been seeing that Diamante has stepped up her level, stepped up her in-ring quality. And I think it's going to be one of Red Velvet's kind of better matches, and definitely one of her better title defenses, which I think will be her first title defense, because women's TV title matches are very rare. We
got one. Who did we get the one against?
I think the one was Red Velvet beating Billie Starkz. I think we've only seen one women's TV title defense since Billie Starkz became the champion.
Is that true?
I think that
That's
Red
so
Velvet's only
gross.
done Proving Ground matches since she won.
What a historic title that we have here on ROH. Killing me. Help me help you, ROH. We move along to Brian Cage, who Lord knows what show he's on or what division he belongs in, but he defeats Alec Price, who I was very excited to see on Ring of Honor. Big Alec Price fan. Also big Alec Price fan. Very, very cool to see here. But that F10 looked nasty. This was one of my more liked Brian Cage matches. He's not always for me. I don't really have a reason. He's just, sometimes wrestlers don't like click in with you. I understand what he's able to do is incredibly impressive. I just never really kind of resonated. But I actually really liked this match. This was one of my favorite Brian Cage matches. I thought there was a lot more storytelling and emotion on his face than we normally get. It almost felt like he was more into this match too. Like there were times where almost had like Randy Orton syndrome, where you can tell when Randy's checked out on something or when Randy's into something. This felt almost like that. I felt like he really liked this match, which was very fun. No idea why it was happening. No idea if Cage of Agony is a trio. No idea if Brian Cage is on AEW or ROH. I don't think they freaking know. So, like, they have so many belts and so many roster efficiency issues that they need to address. And I've actually really liked a lot of the TV product of late, but, like, they've got to get the same 8 guys away from the same 8 belts. It's really suffocating, the AEW brand, and then ROH being under that umbrella is a symptom of that. But I know you were excited to see Alec Price here. I was too. What did you think of what we got from him and Brian Cage?
The garbage man is here. Oh man, this is probably the most excited that I got a non-beef segment on Ring of Honor in quite some time. When I saw my boy Alec Price, I got to chop it up with him, got to interview him, as well as like get to know him outside of the ring when I was in Chicago last year for All Out. Great guy, very humble in what he's doing, but in the ring, man, he's just so talented, so athletic. He can just move around the ring so smooth. For someone as young as he shows like so much poise in the ring. And he took this opportunity, which he didn't get too much time in the ring, but he stood out. He instantly, I was like, yo, you got to get him back on this show, because you gave him like, what, 3-4 minutes? And he's out here doing cartwheels in the ring, doing flips, landing on his feet, big super kick, the Hurricane Rana. He's bumping like crazy. This was my match of the night. I enjoyed the hell out of this. This was a blast to watch. And I agree with you. This was 100% my favorite Brian Cage matchup in quite some time.
Yeah.
I enjoyed him and Rocky Romero in Arlington about like a month or two ago when they first started off in Arlington, Texas. But I thought this, in shorter amount of time, I think that this match had half the amount of time that Rocky Romero and Brian Cage got. I enjoyed this match so much more. And the fact that he kind of put over Alec Price with the way that he finished him off, just power bombing him to death, then doing an F1000 and flipping him onto his head. This was just so much fun to watch. Alec Price is one of the best independent talents out there. If you don't know about Alec Price, and the crowd there didn't know about it because they didn't say it with him, one more time, because he's trash. You gotta say it with them. You gotta know the gimmick. You gotta say it with them. And I think more people, if you highlight them on Ring of Honor, they will get behind him, will get into his offense, will get into his character work, because he shows all of that out in the ring. I haven't seen too many Alec Price promos, but in the ring, I've gotten his character. I understand it very well. He's got a great tag team with Cole Radrick, the Garbage Man, and he's just, there's so much more for you to see from Alec Price, but this was a good showcase for him in like less than 5 minutes.
Agreed. This was shorter, and I liked it a whole heck of a lot. It was not garbage, ironically. This was not. And Brian Cage did not look like garbage. He did not have a garbage opponent. This was super, super fun. I would love to see him and Cole Radrick around, like as a duo. That would be a really fun tag team to get involved. But some good stuff there. Here's something that is an indictment of ROH's current booking. We got a video recap of the Bunkhouse Brawl match between Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes, who are going by the Sons of Texas, because Texas, versus Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, the Undisputed Kingdom. It is absolutely absurd that this match did not happen on ROH television, and it is absolutely absurd that the tag titles are so absent from ROH that we are getting recaps of stipulation matches that are happening on AEW television, so that you can catch ROH audience up to speed on the ROH belts, because they are so absent from this product. And honestly, I couldn't name you a men's singles contender to save my life. I really couldn't. I have no idea who Mark Briscoe would face if you asked me tomorrow. I have no idea who is Atlantis Jr. still the TV title champion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Who's barely been on here.
Who would have known? I have no idea who those guys should face. So when you have to do this with the tag titles, and the only other stuff that we think we're getting on the show is tag action, we at least know who the Iron Savages are. We at least know who the Outrunners are and the Infantry are. We talk about them all the time. I mean, just as an example, like Brian Cage, right? Like I feel like Cage of Agony is the act more, and he just had a singles match on this show. Komander with Johnny TV, those guys don't feel like they're in contention for anything. We're going to talk about Preston Vance and the Pure match in a little bit, but like none of this feels like anybody's being built for anything. Action Andretti versus Tony Deppen. I have no idea where Action Andretti is as far as a singles competitor or a trios competitor. It's bad. So when you have to catch us up on what's going on with the tag titles on the own show that they belong on, how am I supposed to take your product seriously? And for the love of God, why am I paying $9.99 for it? I don't know. I don't know. If I wasn't getting paid to do this show and reimbursing things, why am I doing this? I mean, it pays for itself, I guess, with the pay-per-views being included now, but like, man, it's a really, really, really sad state of the product when you have to catch your viewers up on your own tag belts because they are so absent from the show. It bums me out. It bums me out for all the talent who have been working so hard just for them to get hot-shotted to, honestly, a very entertaining team with Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes. They just didn't exist before they won. So it doesn't make any sense. But I thought it was well produced from what I saw. I was more pissed off that this was happening. So I honestly didn't pay that close of attention to it. I saw the match. I don't need to see the recap of it. And I think it's kind of pathetic, honestly, that it had to be done. But what did you think of this? And did you care or pay attention to it? Because I didn't.
I enjoyed the match. I actually saw the post-match promos because I was watching YouTube, the AEW YouTube, following before Grand Slam last night. So I got to see these promos. So I pretty much saw everything that they showed me. So no, I wasn't really paying attention to this segment. But my one critique, because like I said, I enjoyed the matchup. In a vacuum, I would have even said this was a very good to great matchup. The bunkhouse matchup that they had. But my main nitpick that I said on Collision Discourse over on True Hill Heat, cheap plug, is the fact that this would have been a much better matchup for Sammy and Dustin to win the tag team titles, not successfully defend them. If you would have actually built a story and had them lose that first match, have them go back on Ring of Honor and get victories before you did the Bunkhouse Raw matchup, and then they win the titles there, I would be so much more into Sammy and Dustin as champions if they won in that match instead of a month ago.
I think that's a very, very, very fair point. And I think it's unfair to Sammy Guevara, honestly, because I think he's doing some really good work, but I think people are just so over it at this point, which is unfair to him. If they had given him something compelling to draw into, probably would have been a little bit better received. I did love Dustin in it going, he said something to the effect of, like, I'm so glad you're able to do all of your crazy shit, essentially, because like I don't have it, and to win this match it was required. I thought that was really good. Well, a strength of this episode that was really fun was we talked about Tony Deppen, we talked about Alec Price, some women's enhancement talent, if you want to call it that, Little Mean Kathleen and Christina Marie being on this episode. A very fun tag team and both outstanding competitors in their own right. I'm a big Little Mean Kathleen fan. I think she is fantastic. Them facing Athena and Billie Starkz. But before we get into the match, let's flip it over to the list because we are talking about Athena right now. We are talking about the woman of the promotion, woman of the year, woman of the list, SP3. Who else you got? Let's do 3 and 2.
And this is why if the PWI did, like, you know, the content creators podcaster 500, Kate would definitely be in the top 10 because she's great at the segues, whether it be for ad reads or for list. So
I have a very specific set of skills, SP3, and it's not nearly as badass as where that quote comes from. It's mostly me throwing it to dick pill segues. That's mostly, I have a gift. It's extremely specific. And not at all valuable, really, in any way, shape, or form. But if you need me to make a dick joke to get to a Blue Chew read, I got you. But
and we got a lot of that on this show because I did mention during that Iron Savages matchup, my God, did Ian and Caprice go OD on the meat references and meat writing. I thought that was the most I've ever heard meat writing in one wrestling matchup. So very appropriate.
To be honest, it made me wish that Beef was on this episode. Which I know you wish for every episode of any wrestling show, but
this is why this show gets a thumbs down. No beef on it. Number 3.
A lot of meat, no beef. Sad.
A lot of meat, no beef. What we doing? Number 3 on my list. I feel like this was the matchup that was the turning point of Athena's whole title reign. The March 9th, 2023, the second ever episode of Ring of Honor TV on Honor Club, Athena versus Willow Nightingale. I think this was the turning point of Athena's whole title reign. I thought it was the turning point of Willow Nightingale's career trajectory as well. This was the first kind of like breakout matchup for her, which parlayed into all her success that she had throughout the summer of last year that has gone into this year with winning the TBS championship, her great rivalry with Mercedes Moné, the great blow off to the rivalry with Chris Statlander. I think you can all stem it back, all the success that she's gotten, winning the CMLL Women's World Championship, NJPW Strong Women's World Championship. It all stems back to March of last year with her and Athena stealing the show with still one of the best Ring of Honor TV on Honor Club matches. And when they were in Universal, the good old days. And that was the matchup that really put Athena's title reign on the map for me. And this is why this was a great segue. Number 2, Athena versus Billie Starkz, Ring of Honor, Final Battle 2023, the main event, one of the best built up matches in recent Ring of Honor. I would say the best built up matchup in the Tony Khan era of Ring of Honor pay-per-views. Sure. It was 100%. Athena and Billie Starkz, almost a full 6 months of the build-up with the Minion empowerment, the MIT training, and everything that built up to it. And during the graduation, Billie Starkz turning on her, and then them going out there and pulling out all the stops. Me and a lot of other people believed this was the night that Billie Starkz would become the youngest ever Ring of Honor champion, Ring of Honor Women's World Champion, but she came up short as Athena pulled out the victory with the submission, with the move that is now called, what was it? What did he call it? The Hussy Clutch?
The Hussy Clutch. Loved that. I actually got a retweet from our TNA champion when I called that out, and that is an unbelievable name. Unbelievable name. It made me so happy. Brilliantly done. Brilliantly done. Well done. Well, we're going to make you wait for our number 1 match because we still got a little bit more ROH to talk about. But over 3,000 of you watching right now across all platforms. We thank you so much for tuning in. Another cheap plug for FightfulSelect.com. The Saraya news broke over there. The MVP news broke over there. More to come on that. There is so much happening. If you consider that we still have, just on the AEW side, Wrestle Dream ahead, probably the Continental Classic ahead, World's End, all of these things building up, and that's coming after All In, All Out, Grand Slam. What a cycle on the AEW ROH side. We'll, of course, have Final Battle here on the ROH side specifically, and then, of course, WWE with Survivor Series, and refreshingly, doesn't feel like they just give up on this part of the year anymore. It feels like there's a lot of long-term stories in WWE going into fall. So between that and contract news, job security for me and SP3. All right. Sean's going to be a busy man as usual. So subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. It's also how we get paid, quite frankly. So we appreciate the support, especially in an era where people are trying to poach more than ever before. But stick around also for Joel Pearl with the TNA post show. He is flying solo, so any support you can throw his way would be fantastic. But let's talk about this MIT versus Little Mean Kathleen and Christina Marie match. I actually found out about Christina Marie, I think through Cass, our friend at Body Slam, who SP3, I think the first time I ever met you, I believe, was you were with Cass at GCW at Hammerstein,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So friend of the show, Cass, had told me about Christina Marie. I checked out some of her stuff. I think she's great. And Little Mean Kathleen, a Northeast standout, has done a ton of stuff up in Massachusetts, has done a ton of stuff local to me. So much personality. She is little. She is mean. And she is Kathleen. Going by LMK on ROH, but just such an explosive and fun personality. So much fun. So much fun to have around here. But you get Starkz and Athena attacking them after the match. As SP3 alluded to, you get the submission of the Hussy Clutch on Little Mean Kathleen, which is so great. But they get interrupted by Abadon, and Athena and Starkz scoot out of the ring, which keeps Abadon laying out a forearm on plenty of forearm strikes, actually, on Billie Starkz before catching her with that lariat, and Stark leaves the ring after the onslaught, but Athena sure did get the heck out of there and kind of leave her stranded here, SP3. So some nice post-match storytelling. Love the enhancement talent that we got tonight. I think Athena was just trying to teach Billie a lesson on how to fend for herself. You know what I mean? And it's
no. I'm pretty sure she said she was just polishing her title.
Oh, story tracks. Story tracks.
Sometimes you could be in danger, you could be about to fight, but if you have to polish your title, you have to polish your title. Like I don't understand why Billie was making it such a big deal.
Look, like if you get yourself in a predicament, that doesn't mean I get to have a lackluster looking title. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, sorry that you can't fend for yourself, Billie Starkz, but Athena can't have a shabby looking title out there because of that, So I thought this was a lot of fun. The Hussy Clutch, just such a funny name for a finisher too. And Athena, I love how expansive her catalog of ways, A, that she can put you away with, and B, believably makes you think that she can put you away with a lot of stuff. It makes matches more suspenseful when it's not just like, oh, the O-face, we're going home. Like, she beats you in a lot of different ways now, and I really appreciate that about her. What'd you think of the match itself?
Yeah, I thought this was a good enhancement type of matchup. Loved Billie Starkz pulling out that DDT, just springboarding over to across the ropes and hitting that nice little DDT. I thought Athena was gonna go for the O-face, but instead just pops. I think it was a Little Mean Kathleen in the mouth, and then it does the Hussy Clutch, which once again, one of the best finishing move names out there.
The mother's milk walked so that the Hussy Clutch could run. Yeah, I think some good stuff there. But we are coming down the home stretch. Please leave a thumbs up on this video. Stick around for Joel after we talk about these two matches. Not a lot to say about Komander defeating Johnny TV here with the Celito Lindo. I'm gonna wish Louise was around for that, but
I think you're on pace. Though. It's the rope walk shooting star press.
There, yes, thank you for that.
This was one of those matches that had a lot of great ideas, but I don't think they executed any of them pretty well. I like both guys, and what was going on with Johnny TV's hair?
There was a lot to talk about with Johnny TV's hair.
What is going? What? I was like, did Taya not comb your hair?
Yeah, is it? Did you not make it into hair and makeup in time? It was looking a little rough around the edges for someone whose look is pristine most of the time. Yeah. This felt like they were on overdrive and a lot of stuff just got a little bit sloppy and messy, which is fine. But to your point, it was like they were ships passing in the night on a lot of these moves. It was not the cleanest match. A lot of stuff didn't connect, but it was also very ambitious with what both guys can do. So high risk, unfortunately, the reward not matching up with it as far as what was able to be executed. But if it was something that could click in the future, I think it would be very, very, very fun because it was very creative. It just, the execution, to your point, not super clean, but it also doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot as far as this match had no stakes and neither of them are on a title path. So
it's true. It is what it is.
So, hey, we have a champion who's around sometimes, and that's Lee Moriarty. This actually had a bit of a story going into it. I'm a pure sicko. Unfortunately, this match with Preston Vance was not my favorite of pure matches. There wasn't necessarily a whole heck of a lot wrong with it. I just think it was not Preston Vance's wheelhouse. And I feel like Preston Vance is still at a point in his career where that is more of a challenge than a strength. I remember I saw Mike Bennett, who I'm like, that guy's not a pure wrestler, but he was great in the pure match that I saw him against. I think it was against Josh Woods, I want to say. And And I was like, wow, I didn't know that side to him existed, and this match brought that out. This felt like that side to Preston Vance is still developing, and I don't feel like this match clicked in the way that a lot of Pure matches do. I will say Lee Moriarty is just outstanding, and him holding the Pure title is excellent. There was a lot of creative stuff that he was able to kind of pull out of the bag, but it just felt like, and I don't mean this in an overly negative way, it felt like Preston Vance couldn't really hang, and I don't think that means he'll never have a good Pure match in the future. I don't think it means that he doesn't have plenty to offer in pro wrestling. It just didn't feel like this type of match was a good fit for him as he's reestablishing who he is outside of the Dark Order, outside of, I always want to say LFO and not LFI because I like it when girls stop by for the summer, I guess. But this didn't feel like the establishing program for a guy who's trying to find himself, because Pure matches are such a weird and unique and specific thing. I love Lee Moriarty, though. I thought he did an excellent job showcasing a lot of his creativity and what Pure matches can bring to the table. Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, and Jimmy Jacobs, the judges for this match. What did you think of our main event?
Yeah, this felt, when I heard this was the main event matchup, I was like, well, I guess because Preston Vance has been picking up a couple of wins, but it really feels like this is the wrong division for him.
Yeah.
And it feels like if you had a TV champion that wasn't in Mexico every Friday for CMLL, you would probably put him against the TV champion, because that's more of the division that fits his skills. And I agree with you. Not everybody can mesh well and transition into the Pure division. And I don't think, Preston Vance was meant for the Pure division. So this is nothing on him. This is, once again, we never criticize any of the people on the show, because we want to see all these wrestlers succeed, and all of these wrestlers have talents, have their strengths, but you can't put them in a situation which it shows their weakness. So yes. I think that it comes down to the booking that has been our main complaint about this show in general, and it comes down to this as well. But for what it was a decent little matchup. Like you said, Lee Moriarty is just great at this, and he can work with pretty much anyone, even if they're not meant for the Pure division.
Sure.
He can kind of adapt his style to whoever he's facing, and I think he did that well, to kind of fight from underneath against Preston Vance and show off his offense. Him hitting that big discus lariat had me scared for a moment. I was like, are they actually going to have Preston Vance win this?
It did look good. It did look good.
It looked good.
A little Nigel tribute, it felt like.
Yeah, a little Nigel, a little Brody Lee. So yeah, I dig that from him. I like the way that he was hitting them across the barricade, showing that love to Roosh, because Roosh is known for doing that. Yes. So I like that. I like that Preston Vance's style has kind of developed into both a tribute to Brody Lee as well as his LFI kind of background. So he's putting it all together, everything that he's learned along the way. But Lee Moriarty is going to be a great Pure champion. We just need to see him in there with like the Tony Deppens of the world. Like I said, let's get Tony Deppen back on here and have him go for the Pure title. Anthony Henry, despite him taking a couple of losses, he's got a couple of wins in the tag team division, and you're all known for people winning in the tag team division and then getting a shot at another title that is not the tag team division. So do that with Anthony Henry. There are people on this roster that you could put against Lee Moriarty.
Agreed. Or even people that don't fit that mold but are not in an establishing phase of who they are. Like, I don't think that's what the Pure division is for, but I'll tell you what Joel Pearl is for, and that's to talk about your TNA post show. Hi, Joel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. How was everyone tonight?
It was good. This was a little bit of a little up and down Z of a episode of ROH. Definitely better than last week, but definitely not as good as previous weeks. How was TNA?
It was good. This was the last set from Texas, and now they're heading over to Spartanburg. For those who are attending, the show has been moved. It is still in the same venue, but the show is now Sunday and Monday. So for anyone who's in the path of the hurricane that's running through, first of all, stay safe.
Yes.
Second of all, you should know that the show has been moved to Sunday and Monday. That is when they will tape. So putting that out there, because TNA's done a pretty good job of trying to get that out there via socials. They didn't get to put it out on tonight's show because the show's already in the can and everything's already been rendered and done. So this is me trying to just put it out there for them too. SP3, nice t-shirt.
You TNA shill.
That's me.
Just announcing schedule changes. I'm told that makes you a shill. I know
He's a shill.
Sean was definitely a WWE shill when he was like, hey, it's on FS1 and not Fox today
Listen.
because people are weird.
Listen, when TNA has invited me to shows, they tend to put me in areas where I can see the entire venue and the entire event. So the least I can do when I give my unbiased opinions about the show
Sure.
is also take into account the fact that when TNA invites me to their events, they put me in an area where I can see the entirety of the show.
Okay, but did MJF
nice
ever
of them.
give you pickles? Like, did any TNA talent ever give you pickles?
And see, no, TNA talent have done nothing but give me guff. There's a difference.
Well, we will let you get to all the Guffin McGuffins that are on this show, but have fun talking some TNA. Stick around for Joel. He's flying solo, so give him some extra love.
I do have my number one
Oh my
for my
gosh!
list.
Foolish of me.
It is Athena versus Willow Nightingale,
Hell yeah.
ROH Death Before Dishonor 2023, the first ever women's matchup, women's main event on a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Hard hitting, great matchup. Athena and Willow Nightingale, they're going to be doing this for a lifetime. That's why we need Athena on AEW television, so she can reignite her feud with Willow Nightingale, because they always deliver. So that's number one.
100%.
Maybe in 2025, after she drops that title to Billie, finally found out.
Yeah. We're just biding our time. We're just biding our time until December, so that can happen. And then
Boy.
Athena can get her graduation.
Howdy.
Get a graduation
Howdy.
cap.
Lexi Nair is going to dethrone Athena at this point. I think
Let's go. I'm fine with that. Lexi Nair should be running every division.
She through that MIT angle grew as much as anyone. What an incredible trajectory she's on. But we'll throw it over to Joel. Stick around for the TNA side of things with TNA Shill and favorite of TNA PR, Joel Pearl.
We can go that far.
Enjoy. If you're lucky, Joel will create a nice PowerPoint outlining everything that's going on with the schedule changes. So
Yeah,
we're out of here.
Stands for everybody. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.
Nice.
Oh, thank you, buddy. My shirts always match the decor of a black shirt. Hi, everybody. How are you doing tonight? It is me. I am Solo once again. Cresta had a wonderful time at Grand Slam last night, allegedly, but we are here. I am here. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be with y'all for the next little bit. We're going to talk about TNA, and of course, we'll get into a lot of all the other stuff. So if you're in the chat, hello. It's good to see you. And how about we make this official for the people? Oh, by the way, AJ Styles, that news, Fightful Select, he's totally coming back to TNA. That's just what we're doing. All right, putting that out there before the audio listeners get this, because I cut this part out. All right, are we ready? Okay, 1 and 2. Hello, friends. We're back again. It's Fightful.com. I am Agile Pearl, and it's time for your TNA Impact post show for September 26th, 2024. That's the right date, is it not? Yes, we just finished another episode of TNA Impact, the last of the Texas shows, and this was a good show. I quite enjoyed myself. I'm looking forward to what's coming up next in TNA land. They're going to Spartanburg, South Carolina, but I'll say it at the top of the show, TNA has done a very good job of putting it out there in socials. They couldn't do it tonight because the show was already in the can, so here I am doing my part. If you are attending the shows in Spartanburg, you should probably know that because of the hurricane that's been going through that part of the country, of the U.S., they have moved the tapings to Sunday and Monday night. Okay? It's still the same venue, but they're running Sunday and Monday night instead. Check TNAWrestling.com. They've got all the information there. If you need refunds or anything like that, it's all there. But I'm putting it out there because TNA have also been putting it out there. And of course, spreading it out is just the least that someone like me can do. So welcome to the show. If you haven't already, leave a thumbs up on the video. And of course, subscribe to us here at youtube.com/Fightful and over on Fightful Overbook. That's our sister channel where you can see me most of the time with Jeremy Lambert. We host In the Weeds, our morning show here on Fightful. We interview wrestlers, we talk about the news and results from the wrestling world, and we get a little weird sometimes, because if we can't, then what are we really doing here? Here we talk about TNA. On In the Weeds, yeah, okay, sometimes we talk about TNA too, and I'm sure some of the stuff from tonight's show will bleed into what we talk about tomorrow. But if you want to support us here on this show, you can go ahead and donate a super chat. Any amount, get your question or statement read on the air, or you can go to humperchats.com. Same situation, any amount, get your question or statement read on the air, and we appreciate it if you head over there or if you donate a super chat. Both are great, and we appreciate you greatly. Shall we get into it? FightfulSelect.com has all the news. We'll get into that a little bit later too, okay? Impact opens up with Jordynne Grace and Sol Ruca from NXT coming in to take on Wendy, Choo, and Rosemary. I love the best friend bit for Mariana Grace. It's so stupid. It's so silly, but it's just perfect. I hope that she continues to do this every time she shows up, regardless of gender. I hope that Ariana Grace is my close, personal, best friend. And if it's someone from NXT, I don't know how she's going to do it, for anyone in TNA. Maybe she's my new best friend. I just met them today. I don't care how she does it. I think it's a funny little bit that just makes little to no sense, but works considering who she is. So shout out to Ariana Grace. Match itself was good. Sol Ruca gets a lot of shine in this match. You can definitely tell that there are people in WWE who are high up on Sol Ruca, and for good reason, because she is not only very talented, but she is someone that people gravitate towards. She's very good in the ring. She's learning at a very quick pace. Teaming her with someone like Jordynne Grace makes a lot of sense, especially because this all started when Sol Ruca answered the Jordynne Grace Knockouts Championship Open Challenge on NXT a few weeks back. That got dismantled basically by Wendy, Choo, and Rosemary. So that led to this tag match on TNA grounds, which is neat. I like that there's at least some crossover there. And this talent exchange is working the way it should. You've got Wendy, Choo from NXT. You've got Sol Ruca from NXT. You've got Rosemary and Jordynne Grace, who are two knockouts that have been synonymous with the division for a while, working with NXT's best talent right now. Some of their strongest in-ring talent. So I like that they're giving them that shine and that opportunity to work together. Sol Snatcher into an attempt at the Juggernaut Driver, almost finishes the match, but Tasha Steelz gets involved. She breaks it up, no contest. Masha Slamovich comes in, makes the save, and Tasha Steelz escapes. We're going to a six knockouts. I don't know, what do you call them? Is it a 6 knockouts tag when you have NXT women? I don't know. Leave it in the comments. What do you think? What is it? Does that become still a 6 knockouts champion? Because what do we call it? Leave it in the chat. Maybe it's just a 6-woman match, trios, something. Who knows? I like that Masha and Tasha are getting involved in this whole thing, and I like that we're going to have eventually the Knockouts World Championship come into play because Bound for Glory is quickly approaching. We are a month away from the show, and there's a lot of stories to be told. So with that in mind, talking about Bound for Glory, Frankie Kazarian is backstage with Gia Miller, and he is such a great piece of garbage bad guy. He's all talk. He's willing to go to any extreme to win a match, but he's also willing to do anything to get the win. And he's got good bite. He's not all talk and no bite. He actually can back it up in the ring because he has the experience and he has the stamina. He says every head must bow and every tongue must confess to Frankie Kazarian, the king of TNA. And they say Nick Nemeth is going to be on commentary. Other people feel differently about Kazarian, including Joe Hendry. We'll talk about that in the main event, but I thought this was effective. It was a really, really solid promo from Frankie Kazarian. Ryan Lambert with the super chat saying, I loved that the show was women/knockout heavy. I did too. There's a lot of really good stuff going through the knockouts division in TNA and also the NXT women's division. I talked about it last week. Putting those spotlights on those women who are just typically backstage at an NXT show, shown on camera, but not really working with anyone. This is a good opportunity for this talent exchange to not only get them the reps, but it's also an opportunity for the crossover and the movement, the stories that they aren't getting elsewhere, they're getting in TNA. They're getting those opportunities, and I really like that. And this was another example of that. And of course, we've got Heather Reckless. And we're going to talk about that story. We're going to talk about what's going on with This is going to get me. Lei Ying Lee. I have to remember how to pronounce it. I'm used to Xia Li. I'm used to Xia Zhao. Now I've got to remember for TNA. She is a TNA knockout now. Lei Ying Lee. She made her debut tonight. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But first, we got to talk about this fantastic match. Jonathan Gresham defeats the Laredo Kid. Now, I know I make this joke frequently. Preston and I have done it for years. What happens when a luchador comes to TNA? They lose. Unless it's Laredo Kid. That one time he won the Digital Media Championship out of nowhere. And then, well, AJ Francis beat the shit out of him. Anyway, not important. Laredo Kid comes in, has an excellent match with Jonathan Gresham. Listen, I still have my feelings about the Jonathan Gresham character. I like that he is aggressive. I like that he's back to being aggressive. I miss what he was doing wearing the mask. I miss the alter ego. They made a bit of a hint at it last week that they were going to bring it back. Maybe that's going to be later, but it's just a story that I felt like it did have some legs. Maybe it had some tentacles. Sorry, I digress. This was an excellent match. There was smooth limb working from Jonathan Gresham. He targets the leg, but he also goes after the arms. He goes after just about every pinpoint he can on Laredo Kid. And Laredo Kid is the high-flying luchador who continues to fly around Gresham and create that movement while Gresham, Gresham's a stocky dude. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but he's strong and he's thick. And because of that, he looked good when he'll not only beat you up targeting the limbs, but he'll also know how to be smooth and kind of move around the body and also move around the ropes. And both men are really good at that too, where they can hit those smooth top rope maneuvers, whether they springboard first, second, third rope. It's some really good stuff. Gresham eventually gets very aggressive with the knee, Laredo Kid's knee, and just kind of smashes it right into the, can't do this with two hands onto the thing. Anyway, sorry, audio listeners. He smashes the knee into the mat until Laredo Kid taps out. That's it for Laredo Kid. Gresham gets the win, and they make reference to needing to climb up the ranks leading into Bound for Glory. So I have maybe some thoughts that Jonathan Gresham will be part of something with stakes going into Bound for Glory. Maybe it's the X Division. Maybe it's a tag title. I don't know. There are some people already staking their claims, but we still have about 4 weeks until that comes through. Santana is backstage. He's got a chain. He comes in. He beats up the system in their locker room. Allegedly, we don't know because the door was closed and the camera was outside, but the chain was rattling and people were screaming. I have to assume that Santana got the best of them, but we don't know. I feel like this is leading to Santana and Moose in some sort of blow-off match. You could do it at Bound for Glory. You can do it at the TV tapings. I'd like to save it for the pay-per-view, make it a big moment. Santana beating the system finally, and let Santana move on from there. Let Santana... We're going to talk about this in the main event. Someone remind me, if you're still here at the end, remind me, Santana, Bound for Glory, main event. Just those words. Someone make a note of it and remind me later, just in case I forget. Sometimes I forget. We'll talk about Santana in a little bit, but I would love to see Santana, Moose, one-on-one. Could be a chain match. I don't care. Some sort of hardcore. Doesn't even have to be a hardcore match. They're going to do Monsters Ball. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it feels like those two can probably go at it in some sort of match that's not going to step on the Monsters Ball match that's been announced for Detroit. We'll get to that in a little bit, shall we? Maybe you guys will get to it soon. Who knows? Zachary, Wentz, and Ace of Base defeat Speedball Mike Bailey, the X Division champion, Kushida, and Leon Slater. Going into this match, I was... Okay, I've told people before, I do read the spoilers going into these shows because it gives me more to think about, and it lets me kind of wonder how they shape these matches. I don't see them, but I get the results, and therefore I kind of figure out what we're going to do or where we're going with certain things. This was a match that kind of confused me until I saw what it was all about. And the match was all about getting shine on not only Leon Slater, but also Kushida, again, telling stories in the X Division and getting some sort of opponents lined up for Speedball Mike Bailey going into Bound for Glory. I'm, again, hoping that it's not another multi-man match, or if it is, it's something completely different that they haven't done with the X Division, but I have no idea what that looks like just yet. Maybe it's King of the Mountain. Maybe it's the X Division King of the Mountain match. Bound for Glory is a time where you can move this stuff and have fun, but instead, I feel like it'll be some sort of multi-man match. There's one spot that I have to point out that I love between Wentz and Speedball. You know the tackle, leapfrog, get him again type of finish, or not finish, that sequence? There's a moment where Speedball jumps up for the leapfrog and Wentz grabs Speedball's leg in midair and just flops Speedball onto the ground. Nobody does that. And then he turns it immediately into a snap German suplex. That is innovative. That's the shit that I love. That's the best kind of stuff. And I think that proves once again that Zachary Wentz is very good at this. No one should ever be surprised by this, but in a singles match, Wentz went off with Speedball. Had a great match. He's about to go off. Wentz is to have a match with Wes Lee in a street fight in Chicago on NXT this coming Tuesday. That's going to be a fun match, but it makes sense. Wentz gets the victory in the end, hits the UFO on Leon Slater, gets that big win. And of course, because you're going into that street fight, you're going to make Zachary Wentz look strong. I don't think Wentz is going to beat Wes Lee, but this is a pretty good start. Speedball's backstage and he gives a stamp of approval later on to Leon Slater. Basically does a chin up, tits out, and watch for the shoe, but does it in the X Division style. It was very funny. It's the first thing I thought of as he's telling him, chin up, chest out, and keep moving forward. And I'm like, is he doing Tony Storm? Because I like that he's maybe doing Tony Storm. Leon Slater is absolutely the future of the X Division. That Speedball Mike Bailey has called him that. When Speedball is ready to either move on or become the elder statesman in TNA, whatever he decides to do, Leon Slater is the person that absolutely falls under the next category, the next up guy. Big fan of his. A lot of people are. Speedball is the ambassador of the X Division, as Ayo's saying in the chat. That is true. You see him not only proudly carrying the title, but also defending it at various indies and making the case for not only being one of the best X Division champions in TNA history, but also one of the strongest in terms of quality of opponents. You've had a lot of really great X Division champions over the first, really the first 10 years of Impact. And, regardless, he's got it. I'm not biased. I swear to God, he's got it. Let's move on, shall we? Dina with Jake Something and Alexander Hammerstone. Jake Something's pumping iron in the back. It's what you do. When you're on your breaks at work, you just lift weights. That's what I do when I'm not on camera, right? Spend all my time. No, I don't. Who am I kidding? Diener calls out Something for his bad choices. Okay. I like that they're still doing the Diener and Jake Something have a history. Jake Something's clearly frustrated. He doesn't feel like he's been, succeeding. He calls himself, he's sick of failure, he says. And then Diener basically just calls Hammerstone a bad influence and says, this is not the guy you want to be around. This is not the guy you want to be with. And then Hammerstone just says, you're pathetic, Diener. I'll challenge you to a fight. And Diener's like, do it for the people, I guess. I almost expected Diener to slap not Alexander's, to slap Hammerstone. He didn't do it. Instead, he just accepts and walks away because he'll eat his words next week when they do the match or whenever they do the match. And that's fine. Diener's not made to be a winner or a champion here, but he's here to tell a story. He's here to produce a story for not only Something, but Hammerstone as well. And those two as a tag team, I hope something comes from that, because Jake Something has been someone that I know I've been talking about on this show for years, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. When the X Division was starting to get some momentum behind him, that suddenly just dropped. So I'm hoping that whatever this Hammerstone and Something story is, that they work together. I know right now that Something and Speedball are DPW tag team champions. They've been tag teaming in other companies as well. They have that going for them. So Jake Something, he's absolutely, he's great as a singles guy, but you can do him as a tag team guy as well, and it would probably get over very well. And Hammerstone, who's been a bit lost in the shuffle, there was at one point it was supposed to be Hammerstone and Something, and then that match didn't happen. So now they're teaming up. So let's do something with these two men. It's really weird to say Something while you're talking about Jake Something, and I'm sure he knows that, but I'm sure he smiles when it happens. Diener and Hammerstone, that's going to be up soon. Lei Ying Lee makes her debut. She defeats Hyan. Yes, it's pronounced Hyan. Yes, we've interviewed her on In the Weeds. Go check that out. We actually interviewed her before the 2023 Queen of the Indies when Masha Slamovich won. Well, in 2024, this is fairly recently, guess who the Queen of the Indies was? It was Lei Ying Lee's I see I'm doing it again. Lei Ying Lee's opponent tonight, Hyan, is the 2024 Queen of the Indies. And who did she defeat to win it? Well, the 2023 winner, Masha Slamovich. Hyan had a good showing. I really appreciate the work that she does, the selling she does for Lei Ying Lee. Lei Ying comes in with a lot of fanfare. People should be impressed, should be excited for her, because not only does she have that charisma, she also has the skill. She's also legitimately knocked out WWE superstars in the ring over the past time she was there. So while I hope that no one gets injured, people, I hope, realize that she is legitimately a fighter. There was one story that always went around towards the end of her WWE tenure. She was about to do some sort of kickboxing event in Florida, and she didn't tell anyone. It wasn't like the office didn't know about it. And then they suddenly caught wind of it at WWE, and they're like, you can't do that. And they pulled her from it. She's a legitimate fighter. Like, she can beat my ass if I said anything bad about her. That being said, though, the match was really good. Hyan is fantastic. I really do hope that we get to see more of her, especially as TNA starts to beef up their knockouts division, bring in more of these stars of the independents who are really making a name for themselves, and also just continue to prove themselves as good wrestlers and also as people who could be great characters, because it's more than just the wrestling. I always say, once your character is locked in and dialed in, you're doing something great. That's why I keep going back to the Gresham thing. That's why I keep doing it, because that character had something. I wanted to see more of that. That's why I keep going back. But anyway, we're not talking about that. Thunderstruck tornado style kick gets the win for Yailing. I'm going to do it again. Lei Ying Lee. I'm going to get it. I swear to God, this is my first week. So give me something here. And then they say on commentary that her name roughly translates to Thunder Shadow. So Thunderstruck makes a lot of sense. Good stuff here. I'm looking forward to what they do with her. I assume they're going to keep her as a babyface for a while, because she's getting those reactions for her first time out. They're portraying her as such through socials, and she has that charisma. There will be time for her to be a heel down the road, but we're going to talk about that with somebody else in a minute that may surprise you, or maybe not. Who knows? I'm weird like that. Give you both sides at the same time. See what you want to do. Let me get a drink real quick. Love that dead air. Isn't it great when it's just me? I gotta keep talking and filibustering just to make my point so that you don't get the dead air. But it can all skip. Just use Smart Skip if you're using an iPad or not an iPad. If you use a podcast app, use the Smart Skip. Ace of Bays, they want their contractual rematch. Now, I don't like this. I like where it goes. We'll get there in a second, but there's this is something that I've always thought about, and I'm glad that they mention it, but I'm also infuriated that they mention this. So, like, System, they got their contractual rematch out of Ace of Bays, and then Ace of Bays, now they want their contractual rematch because they also lost the titles to System. This is the problem with champions beating, champions wanting their rematches, that it keeps going. And I don't like that either you have to beat them twice to keep the titles and move the other team to the back of the line, or you just keep hot potatoing the stupid titles. So I want them to get rid of the contractual rematch, or at least stop using it as a booking crutch to get to whatever match you want to do. The Hardys interrupt, though. Matt and Jeff interrupt Ace of Bays. By the way, Sean Ross Sapp had to sit down with the Hardys recently. That just went up, actually, I think yesterday on our channel. So go check that out. Slap a retweet on the video when you see it. Comment below if you've seen it or not. And also, if you have, what's your favorite part? But anyway, the Hardys, they come back and they say, well, we deserve a match because we've pinned the System twice in a row now. And I say, yes, you do deserve something for that. You do deserve an opportunity at the tag titles, or at least something to put you into title contention, because you did, in fact, beat the System twice. Now, you did it before they won the tag titles, but you still have more recent victories over them than, say, I don't know, Ace of Bays. They want the tag titles, do the Hardys. I'm fine with this. When AEW got both Hardy brothers, that was the plan. The Hardys win the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Now, I understand the stuff with Jeff got in the way, and that's not what happened. Now's the chance for redemption. As long as Jeff Hardy is healthy, and as long as he's in the right mindset and he's good to go, there's no reason why you wouldn't have the Hardy brothers win the tag titles one more time and have that moment. That's something that they deserve, in my opinion. And I've never been the biggest like, oh, give it to the nostalgia guys, because I don't always like that. But this is a story that at least you can tell, and at least it doesn't have to be forever. It just needs to be long enough to prove they can still go, which they can, and that they would look good with those titles and give a little bit more prestige. Now, on the other hand of this is the TNA World Champion is also a former WWE guy, so I don't want to have too much of that going on either. It's hard to get rid of that brush when it's already been stroked on you. So Hardy's winning makes sense. They don't have to have it for long, but it would look good. Jeff Hardy, however, being a train doing choo-choo was so stupid. Even Ace and Bays were confused. Like, oh, I guess that's the new thing now. He's just choo-choo, choo-choo. It was so stupid. But it's obviously got me, so who am I? Oh, Josh Alexander, however, he can get me. I knew where this was going. Not just because I told you already, I do read the spoilers, but also I could have told you this. At least cementing the heel turn was happening. But let's get into it. Puts over Joe Hendry. He admits that he lost. Crowd's chanting, "You tapped out." And he's like, yeah, I did. But I went out on my shield. I tapped out. It happens. And he calls out Eric Young because last week EY was like, hey, you got to get your shit together. EY comes out, puts over Josh and says, you're the personification of excellence and wrestling in TNA. EY, if he's the lifeblood, then Josh is the heartbeat. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting a little heavy-handed and it feels like we're building up to something obvious. Well, they did, because Eric Young mentions the trigger word. Joe Hendry says he believes in him. I feel like that's the moment, because Josh says thank you, and they raise their hands. They do the tease of, oh, you leave. No, you leave. No, you leave. And then Josh hits a German suplex on Eric Young. In my opinion, should have kicked him in the dick. I feel like that's a little more impactful, but not my show, not my creative. Just would have kicked him in the dick. People know I'm a big fan of a good old dick kick, just to prove your point. Joe Hendry knows a good dick kick goes a long way, especially if you're wearing a cup. But it also makes sense to suplex EY on his neck, because guess who's had a bad neck for a lot of his career lately, and that's Eric Young. Macklin comes in to make the save for EY, and out comes Sinner and Saint. They align with Josh Alexander to the surprise of nobody, because last week Alexander kind of told them, and Sinner and Saint looked at each other and were kind of like, I think we're going to do this. Sinner and Saint take out Macklin and EY, and now babyface Steve Macklin is something we are going to have to get used to, because it feels like we're going that way. When Macklin mentioned having respect for EY, and then they had the tag match at Victory Road, yeah, they lost, but they still came together, and they're going to be together. EY is the guy to get Macklin over as a babyface. And I really see some similarities between Eric Young and Steve Macklin in presentation. If Eric Young is the lifeblood, I think for the last few years, Steve Macklin has become that lifeblood in TNA as well. He's become not only dependable, but also someone whose stories are always just solid and on point, and they make sense. And while they're not always for a title, they're always something top tier, and they're always something with some level of importance. That's the Eric Young way as well. And I think the idea of having Eric Young, who is, he's got more years behind him than he does in front of him. And a younger guy like Steve Macklin, who is continuing to show that he doesn't need to be a world champion to be a significant member of the roster. You have those two team up, and EY gives that legacy rub to Macklin, who is trying to be a babyface for the first time ever in this company. Really, in most places, like Macklin doesn't do babyface, and he's about to try it. I think EY is the right guy to try it. Macklin gets hit with a C4 spike by Josh Alexander, and this is another thing that I like about doing this. It's a role reversal. Josh Alexander, perennial babyface, trying it on the other side. Macklin, perennial heel, moving over to the other side. That's going to change the way the matches look. That's going to change the way that things are presented. I like that there's a story there. Those two have a history. You can absolutely go some places with that. And depending on who your champion is and where they sit on the depth chart, that's another thing you can use to your advantage. If Macklin is a babyface, your champion is not a babyface, well, guess what? You've got a whole new story that you can tell with someone like Steve Macklin on that side, just like you can with Josh Alexander being a heel going after the babyface champion. They just did that with Nemeth and Josh Alexander. Same thing. It's good. Santino's with Steph DeLander. They're talking about Steph's injury. She's presumably going away, but they kind of tease that she's not, because maybe she'll become Santino's second in command, but they didn't. They left it very open-ended, and I don't know what that means. But really, the vibe of this was that they're going to make Matt Cardona versus PCO in a Monsters Ball match, which I think, chat, I think you got that last week. I think we were talking about this, and some of y'all are saying this should be a Monsters Ball match. Well, it makes perfect sense. Monsters Ball, Bound for Glory. Both the TNA Digital Media Championship and the International Wrestling Championships are on the line. Just have Cardona win it and just trash the International Wrestling Championship. It doesn't need to be there. There's no point in having it. It was good for the Montreal stuff, but it doesn't need to exist. Sorry, I'm not having a moment on the air. The International Wrestling Championship story was great for what you were doing with PCO in Montreal. I think now we can officially retire it and move along from it. Okay. But Bound for Glory gets its first official match made tonight. Heather Reckless defeats Xia Brookside. Xia Brookside coming out wearing a 10-gallon hat and tassels. She's in Texas. Commentary makes a good joke about that. And of course, she's British, so it makes it even more fun. And Ash by Elegance, not to be outdone, comes out in her cowboy hat, cow thing. Her homage to Trish Stratus, fellow Canadian Trish. She comes out with George Iceman to watch. Poor Heather Reckless. Her hair extensions come out mid-match. Xia Brookside taunts both blondes with it. And then I realized as I'm writing that, Xia is also blonde. Okay. Anyway, point is, Brookside keeps taunting more and more for the heels. And then it enrages Ash by Elegance. So Iceman does the same to Xia Brookside. And that allows Heather Reckless to hit the rarefied air, which is Ash by Elegance's finisher. And she gets the win as Heather Reckless. That's a tag team in the making, folks. I'm telling you, that's a tag team in the making. Ash by Elegance, Heather Reckless. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Knockouts tag team division, it needed a couple more people, but it also has a lineage that's about to show up. And that's going to be Spitfire has it now. They'll defend it a few more times until they lose those tag titles to Reckless and Reckless and Elegance. And then that's going to bring back Havoc. And we're going back to Decay. I think we're on that. But we'll find out soon. We got some time. But I feel like that's where we're going, because the story still is Havoc's going to come back at one point. And if Havoc comes back, she's going to hopefully realign with Rosemary and get her revenge on Ash by Elegance. And I guess Rosemary's got to do something about the George Iceman / Ash by Elegance situation. That's been kind of side quested for now as Rosemary works with NXT talent. Who knows? That's where I'm going. Backstage, Ash by Elegance is hurting. Her dogs are barking, as they say, and Heather Reckless comes in and is like, did you see my match? Did you see how I looked? I did it for you. And George Iceman's like, yeah, you're a mess. You were reckless. And points to the rat's nest of a hair extension and says, we got to get this. We got to do better than this. So he leads both women to the limo. And next week, we're going to see Ash by Elegance and Heather Reckless having a makeover for the latter. Good. Why not? Be fun. Speaking of which, next week they're going to do Grace Ruka and Slamovich versus Steel Choo and Rosemary. Reckless gets her makeover. Macklin and EY take on Sinner and Saint. Love that for Sinner and Saint. Those two guys are gold in this division for the tag team division. Absolutely. And Ace of Base face off against the Hardys for the first time, which is a match I'm personally looking forward to. Main event time. Now, before I talk about FightfulSelect.com, best $5 in the business, shall we? It's how we pay our bills here, along with the ads and stuff like that. But I'm giving you FightfulSelect.com, best $5 in the business. Saraya announced tonight via Fightful Select that she has re-signed with AEW. They picked up the option year. We got that info and more over on FightfulSelect.com. Cardi B working with WWE. That dropped today along with SummerSlam 2025 happening in East Rutherford, New Jersey at MetLife Stadium. We got news on how the Cardi B stuff happened. We got that on FightfulSelect.com and tons of content, tons of answers. Our Fightful Select Discord is always popping. People talking all day and all night in that Discord. So if you're not there, $5 get you in at FightfulSelect.com. Best $5 in the business. Most content anywhere. We get a lot of it. We really do. Compared to everyone else, we're really pumping it out all day and all night, baby. How did I really just make a all day, all night, baby? Anyway, not important. I'm going out. Again, Sean interviewed the Hardys. Go check that out if you haven't already. That's over on this YouTube channel right here. This youtube.com/Fightful. That's there. Main event time. Should you re-download Discord? Absolutely. Yes, you should. Get your Humper Chats in, get your Super Chats in, because this is the big one. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. The TNA World Championship #1 contenders match. Winner gets to face Nick Nemeth at Bound for Glory in Detroit. Joe Hendry defeats Frankie Kazarian. This one is good. It was a little convoluted, though. Nick Nemeth is on commentary. I love that. This was funny. They make reference to the fact that Kazarian came out for Nemeth and Alexander and their match at Turning Point. And what happened? It was Matt Raywalt says, oh, Kazarian brought me a scarf. What did you bring me? And Nemeth was like, I brought my world title. And then Matt Raywalt touches it and he's just like, ooh, pretty. I thought that was very funny and very silly, but it was good stuff. Nemeth on commentary, very baby face, very rah company, very best in the world type of stuff. Thank you for the reminder about Santana. We'll get there in a second. Hendry goes and does the Frankie Kazarian intro bit, which was nice. Hendry grabs the microphone from Jade Chung as she's about to do it. Instead, he goes and calls Frankie the winner of the 2024 Antonio Banderas lookalike competition. The dad from Spy Kids, Puss in Boots, gets a chant from the crowd. Tom Hannafin loves wrestling because of that chant. And then before he gets to the end of it, Kazarian blindsides Hendry, and we're off to the races. I'm going to say this. Joe Hendry has done a really good job lately, and TNA has done a good job with Joe Hendry lately. So what do I mean by that? TNA has done a really good job of putting Joe Hendry in not only the limelight and in the spotlight, but also trusting him to get over beyond the comedy aspects. He still gets to do the comedy stuff and the creative stuff that makes him Joe Hendry, but in the ring, he continues to prove that he can do that style, that main event, stuff that they want to get from that. And like I said, Hendry's held up his end of the bargain because his time in NXT, I think, was quite invaluable. I think he did a little bit of finishing school. And I think he spent a little time getting to understand what you get from a WWE style system. TNA is probably closer to a WWE style presentation than, say, AEW. It's not a knock at anyone. It's just a presentation commentary. And I think that Hendry fits that bill a little bit more. Excuse me. So as a result, both sides have put the investment in on each other, and I like that it's going the right way. He's being treated as the star that TNA always thought he could be, but I think for a little while they weren't sure what that was going to look like. Now they have a better idea. Match goes on. The match is fine. Kazarian towards the first finish. Spoiler alert. I mean, we're talking about the match, so you already know. Kazarian finds his brass knucks. They're in his ring vest that's sitting on the floor by ringside. Everybody sees it. Everybody and their mother, everybody not named Daniel Spencer sees it. Hell, Joe Hendry probably saw it as well. Frankie Kazarian grabs those brass knuckles, and then as Hendry goes to try and stop him, pop right in the face. Joe Hendry gets laid out by Kazarian. Everybody's yelling, everybody's screaming, but the referee, Daniel Spencer, counts 3. Kazarian is declared the winner, but Nemeth gets up from the announce desk, grabs the knuckles that are right at his feet, shows them off to Spencer. Paige Prinzavali, who's the other referee, comes down and says, hey, you're right. And then Santino Marella comes out, restarts the match, says, we're not going to have it like this, especially with the main event for Bound for Glory in the line. So they restart the match. Hendry gets the win the second time around, hits a standing ovation, gets the victory. Hendry versus Nemeth is the planned main event for Bound for Glory. So I don't remember if we really talked about this last week. I don't think we did, because I didn't want to get too far into the weeds Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Fightful Overbooked, because I didn't want to give out taping spoilers. I try my best not to do that on this show because we're really focused on what's happened that week, presentation-wise, on the show. Well, now you know. Joe Hendry, #1 contender, taking on Nick Nemeth as of right now for the TNA World title. So, JBL. He's come out now twice in a row in terms of the PLEs. Came out at Emergence. He came out at Victory Road. At Emergence, he showed up and just kind of whispered sweet nothings into Nick Nemeth's ear. At Victory Road, he came out and he helped fight off the system so that Nemeth could get the victory. That match was Moose against Nemeth. In case I misspoke and said Alexander, because that was Emergence. Sometimes I get my timelines mixed up. JBL. Everywhere else that JBL has been, he is very much the heel. He is very much the bad guy. He's very much the guy that you can't trust. MLW, he's doing it as a bad guy. GCW, he's doing it as a bad guy. AAA, he's there. He's a bad guy. TNA is the only place where he has shown up and not been considered the bad guy because he's working with the champion who is the babyface. I don't think Joe Hendry is winning the world title at Bound for Glory. I think that it's going to be JBL basically turning Nick Nemeth, or Nick Nemeth turning to align with the proper alignment of JBL, which is as a heel. That's where I'm at. I could be wrong, but if JBL is being presented literally everywhere else as the bad guy, wouldn't make sense for TNA to be the only one where he's not, because everything seems to be working in tandem for whatever JBL's doing. So I think that Joe Hendry might be a casualty of this. Whether or not people are a fan of that, that's a whole other can of worms. That's another story. But I could see that being where they go. Now, Santana. Thank you, chat, for reminding me. I said it before and I said it again. Santana is really up next. You beat a former world champion like Moose, that's going to play a little bit further and maybe hard to kill. And I've made this comment before. And it's always been like, maybe at Bound for Glory, maybe at this event, maybe that. I think maybe at Bound for Glory, you would see Santana maybe beat Moose in some sort of match that puts him over. And then it's either Final Resolution, I doubt it, Hard to Kill. The next pay-per-view could be the crowning of Santana 1 year later. That could be the moment. I guess it would be less than that because he came back at Rebellion, didn't he? They ran the same venue twice for those pay-per-views. You got to give me a break. I went to Hard to Kill. Every match is this. Every venue is the same now. But anyway, I digress. Having Santana come in and really rekindle his main event run, having that end with the TNA World Championship match with Nick Nemeth, who has recently turned heel, could work. It could work. Where does Joe Hendry fit in on this? Maybe he's just not the world champion yet. But that's just it. TNA still does pay-per-views. They still do pay-per-views. You still pay per view. The premium live events of the TNA Plus shows that you can also... Anyway, semantics. We're not doing this. That's in the weeds. We do that on In the Weeds. But that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if we're going to see the crowning of Joe Hendry. I don't know, because his contract is another topic of conversation where, you don't know when it's up. Some people say substantial amount of time. Other people say less, not as much time. Do you want to put the title on him? Do you know where he's going? And do you know what you want of him? Or do you finally take advantage of what has been the hot hand and you move the title over to Joe Hendry? It's less impactful to do it when you've got two baby faces going in the match. Maybe the crowning of Joe Hendry is later on, after Nemeth officially turns heel because of the JBL stuff. Maybe that's the crowning of Joe Hendry. Second time around. Maybe Joe Hendry wins the title at Hard to Kill. Maybe that's when you do it. But all feelings right now is that if you're doing a babyface match, to me, I don't think you can crown a new world champion in that world and really make it a moment, especially for someone like Joe Hendry, who's been fighting from underneath. I see Ryan in the chat saying, you don't see Joe winning the title in TNA, but it could play to him gunning for the NXT title. It could. I feel like one of those wrestlers that are going to finish up with TNA and possibly move over to NXT. I feel like they're going to play something of a crossover role, because this talent exchange that they've been doing with NXT and TNA, something's got to happen where one crosses the bridge to the other with some sort of title implications. That's a good story to tell. But that's kind of where I'm at with this main event for Bound for Glory. Is it going to be good? Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping that the story that they tell is not just a good one, but also one that gets heat behind one member of this match. I feel like Kazarian and Nemeth will happen. sometime before Bound for Glory, maybe at the tapings in Spartanburg. We'll find out. But for now, you've got 2 matches on the docket for Bound for Glory. You've got PCO and Cardona in a Monsters Ball match, and then you've got the main event, the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It's going to be Joe Hendry versus Nick Nemeth. Let's see where that plays out. Let me know where you think it plays out. Leave it in the comments, or just say hi. Don't leave a TNA chant. I don't know. Do whatever you want. It's your engagement. It's how I like it. But we'll be back next Thursday, as we always are, talk about TNA. But for, I guess, for the Ring of Honor crew, why not? You'll find me. I'll be in the weeds tomorrow, as I always am. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you haven't subscribed to Fightful Overbooked yet, you should. And, of course, subscribe to this one. Leave a thumbs up on the way out. Till then, I am at Joel Pearl, JOELPEARL. Ladies and gentlemen and friends beyond the binary, we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.